What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Our apologies for the delayed start, a little bit of technical difficulties, but that's in the past. I am jacked. We have another new friend coming on the Dr. Vibe show today. Also realize that the Dr. Vibe show is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And also realize that I'm a certified empowerment coach and president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. Well, who is this new friend? Well, I just reached out to her and she was just so energetic to respond to me. So I said, all right, let's make this happen. So it's Marina Sbrochi. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from the Ohio State University, as well as a Master's in Professional Counseling from Emberton University. She's a blogger for the HuffPost Divorce blog. Her articles have been copied and posted on over 60, that's 60, folks, 60 different platforms. That is out of control. That's fantastic, and especially law firm websites throughout the United States. She is an IPPY award-winning author of "Stop Looking for a Husband, Find the Love of Your Life." We're not talking about that tonight, by the way. We're talking about her award-winning book, "Nasty Divorce: A Kid's Eye View." She also coaches divorced families to help them navigate through the new normal in a way that keeps nasty, and she puts capital nasty in capitals, from damaging their children and themselves. She is on Twitter at divorced w kids and was named on the top 10 divorce tips on Twitter. So welcome to our show, to our conversation, Marina Sbrochi. How are you?
Hey, great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, the
I
pleasure
like the
is,
vibe.
yeah, the pleasure is mine. And we had a little technical challenges getting everything started, but we're good now. And I will just encourage, if anyone has any questions in real time, just type them in. We'll get Marina to ask them and have a lot of fun. Well, it's not a fun subject, but we're going to make it as fun as possible. So Marina, we love always with our new friends to have them share a little background about yourself. So what was life before the Ohio State University?
So I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I'm the oldest of three kids in a all Italian family, and I, had some difficulties growing up too. Some verbal abuse going on, and some other things that kind of led me as a small child. And I went to a school where I saw actually a lot of hypocrisy with adults. It was a religious school, and the way they treated people. And so from a young age, I was very keen to notice um, discrepancies, so to speak, sort of when things flow, when I guess the vibe is right, and then when somebody comes in and, messes up the vibe with their presence, their words, and the things that they do. And so since then, I've always just had kind of a bleeding heart for, people that are wronged, or damaged in a way that shouldn't be, where it just, it doesn't have to be that way. So fast forward, so I go to Ohio State, which as it was known then, and then later somebody points out, well, it's, the Ohio State University. So the Ohio State University it is. And, I really, I enjoyed going there. It was a great school. And, when your whole state likes the football team, that's, works well that way. And anyways, had moved, I had always wanted to live in New York City, and I had ended up in a verbally abusive relationship in my 20s.
Wow.
And yeah, that was, that sucked. And
Absolutely.
then just wondering like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Why are people like that? Always in the back of my mind. So left that, moved to New York City, and where I met my husband, who was completely a super nice guy, a really just a stand up, really, really nice guy. Long story short, we worked across from the World Trade Center. So when that happened during September 11th, um, you know, his office moved to Dallas, mine moved to, Midtown Manhattan. And so we decided, okay, I'll move to Dallas. And sort of followed, hence, the first book, that fairy tale path, like find this guy that's perfect on paper, let's get married and then let's have kids. And then I kind of realized into that maybe I probably wasn't ready for any of that, and was just sort of following along this path that I thought I should follow along. So got divorced. I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and really I went to a lot of counseling around it, and just oh, what am I doing? And how can we do, if it's going to go this way, how can we do it and not mess up the kids as much as possible? So we had talked about having we're going to have 2 homes. This was before conscious uncoupling, but we're going to have 2 homes. We're going to have a mommy's house and a daddy's house. And you can come and go to mommy's house or daddy's house. Daddy can come to mommy's house. Mommy can come to daddy's house. We're just going to, split it up into 2 homes. Can we sell it to the kids like that? And the counselor was like, sure. Why would you paint it as a bad thing? You can paint it as whatever you want. And so, I'll say our children have been very happy. It's been 9 years now. He's remarried. I'm remarried. That they think, oh, we have 4 people that love us. So, he has they have a great stepmom, a great stepdad. It's really an ideal situation where they feel like they have more people, rather than painting it into the dysfunction. Just, it is what it is. Why not make it, why not make it good? Why not make it great where we all get along? We can go to birthday parties together. We can be places where sometimes people are like, who's married to who? Because everybody gets along so well. And, kind of during that is when I saw, other people get divorced and not that situation at all. And so went down from there.
Sorry, no problem. And thank you for sharing some of your story. Before we move on a little bit further, it seemed that early in your life, social justice was of importance to you. Am I correct in hearing that?
Oh, absolutely. I used to write letters to Amnesty International in the 7th grade, like just get on letter writing campaigns. We had our science teacher was from Iran, and she would tell us about living there and just the things that went on. And I just super got into that. And they did this Hands Across America thing when I was in the 8th grade. And I was like, we have to do that. I got our whole school to do that. That was just, I've been like a peace hippie, just kind of looking for that definitely ever since I was a kid.
When you got married, what was the influences? Was that something that was part of your family heritage? There were a lot of married couples when you were getting married, and were you given any tips on how to have a successful marriage?
Well, kind of no.
Okay, no, that's
I would
honest.
say I could say I probably didn't see, the marriages I liked were more fairy tale marriages, on TV, Say Anything, Lloyd Dobler, that's kind of what I was looking for. And then, couldn't seem to find that. And I was really, when I finally got married, I was 31 or 30. So It was kind of getting older, and, felt that like, okay, well, not necessarily, good enough. Not that I didn't love him, but I guess I didn't know what love really was, to be honest.
Right.
And just kind of equated that to like a list on a piece of paper, like he's really nice. We never got enough. So it was the opposite of the abusive relationship I was in, somebody that was super, very nice, very gentle, and, successful, you can polite, good looking, just tick off the list.
Sure.
Was that. And then, probably also not realizing what I was able to handle as far as, emotional or deep relationships. I'd never had long relationships, in my life up to that, like just dated people for 6 to 9 months until something they did, bothered me. And then I left, maybe not realizing there was more to the story. And I was also a common denominator in that,
Okay. When your husband and yourself, your first husband, knew that things were not going well and things were looking like you're going to get a divorce, were the kids taken account, or was it just basically we're going to get away from each other? And did you think about the well-being of the kids, either one of you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I would say that I was the one that felt more disenfranchised, and maybe more along those lines of just we're 2 different people, and the things that not that we were so far off and values wise for the kids, we've all both wanted what's best for our kids to be, kind, caring human beings, who do to the best of their ability. So on the same program there, probably a lot of what I couldn't deal with that came up there. And then, but absolutely thinking number one of them first. So when we finally sat down and were like, okay, this isn't, it's not going to change. We're just two different people, mostly from my pushing. And I don't want to be married anymore. But it is very important that these kids don't think that anybody doesn't love them. So
Right.
kind of like, what you say at the beginning, you have a little phrase of what you say. I had started saying that to my children when we had two houses is, we go to bed each night. And I've said this for 9 years now is that I love you more than anything. I will always come back for you. So if they were worried, like, because we're not with me one night, I'm not leaving, I'll be back, or if I go on vacation, I'll always be back for you. And that we can work on anything. We can talk about anything so that they would always know that no matter what problem it is that seems, overwhelming, that we can talk about it and we can find a solution to something. There's no problem that is not work outable, I believe. So to just kind of get that, going in their heads. And very much we talked about, and talk to other people, we're not talking bad to each other about the kids. So what I say is your dad's all the good qualities about him. If I have anything bad to say about him, we don't discuss it with the kids. And we both agreed upon that the children were off limits, especially, and then gossip starts flying
Of
around,
course.
in the circles, and to really just address people head on, like, this is not what we're looking to do. We're not looking to do a trash down competition. We have two small children and, their welfare is of the utmost importance. And we both did think that.
I know that you and your husband were concerned about the well-being of your kids. Did family members and friends show care about the well-being of your kids because you were going to go through a divorce?
Um, you know, I don't know if it was so much that, then they were probably worried that the person I divorced had a lot of money, that I was going to take his money,
Wow.
and did not. So I waived my right to taking half of that. And I think that was more of like, what are we going to do with the money?
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that people didn't care what happened to the kids. I don't think that that's untrue at all. And we both had parents that were very supportive to us.
Right.
But I think from the friend side, it was just more, I had some people like, well, it's going to wreck our, group of people.
Sure.
And okay.
All right. Well, let's lead into this.
Alrighty.
Now, how did this book come about?
So, so I get divorced and, we do the two house thing. And, as that comes, there's always somebody cycling through, the divorce circle. So I have another girlfriend, going through divorce, and then I can just see, and this, they have a lot of money, both intelligent people. And then I just see this man being like, I mean, awful, like the name calling, the things he would say to his son was maybe like, call it 12 or 13 at the time. I mean, just the things he would say about the mother to this boy. And then would also say things, they couldn't bring clothes from one house to another. And she's like, what is he? You think I'm wearing his basketball shorts? They're his. Why can't he have clothes at one place? Or if it was the mother's turn to have the kid and they switched something and he needed $20 for school, the father would, I'm not giving you $20. That's and just sniffering about just little stuff. And then as this went on, just watching how stressed she was, how stressed the kids were. You could see it in the children, and then the acting out began. And then let's just fast forward 6 years and then see, kid in rehab, like just all these things that go south. And it's 100% the way the man acted, how mean and vicious he was about his mother to that boy. And these are things that like children can't control. When you get divorced, that children are powerless. And when you bring your problems to them and then start complaining about another parent, which, they see as those two parents, you put them in an impossible situation and they will act out because they don't know what to do with it.
All right, good.
And
So, what do you remember the day that you made the decision to say, I'm going to write this book?
yeah, so I there was a couple more stories like that, and I'm just thinking, okay, well, what does it take to make behavior change? It's not that these people are uneducated or they don't know what is best, because I would argue that they probably do. But and then I started thinking about, okay, well, I've done 180s before. What was I when I was in a space where I just couldn't see, what I was doing wrong? What made me do that 180? And it was always via somebody else with a similar behavior that I could see that I did, to watch it from the outside and be like, oh, whoa, I do that. That's not good. So I thought, well, and there's, if you just research it, there's a million clinical books by psychologists, people, with lots of degrees that will tell you this is bad. It leads to anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, addiction, all these things. So we know the facts, but still no change. So I thought, well, maybe if we, like with this behavior change, if I just collected stories of people to say, from, hey, my mom calls my dad a loser all the time, and this is how it affects me 10 years later. If we could get real stories, maybe somebody might see in there, oh, wow, I didn't know that calling somebody who arguably you could say might be a loser because they're not paying for their kids, they don't see their kids, they make false promises, but by saying those words, what damage it does, and how doing something else can just make a difference in the way the children perceive that situation. And so I had, started to collect stories. And it was kind of hard, to get stories out of people. So I'd written a little, snippet, and the Huffington Post, or HuffPost now, put it up on their Facebook page. And that's when I suddenly start getting like just all these emails. I didn't know they'd put it up there. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I got like 8,000 likes,
Wow.
crazy shares, just, comments, galore, hundreds of comments of people either like, oh my gosh, yes, this happens, it's so damaging, or people really defending, like, awful comments like, yeah, my ex-wife is awful, I hope she dies.
Wow.
Really bad stuff.
Oh.
And then if you see the stories in the book, so I start talking to people and I'm just reading these and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's worse than I thought. People are really awful. And it's so damaging. Years long damaging, not, like, oh, oops, let's think about that for 30 minutes and process it. No,
Yeah,
really bad.
well, and I'm going to parking lot just for a second. Why did you choose to write it from a kid's view instead of a lady's view?
Well, because it's from, that's, I kind of think the child, and maybe I think back to myself, what I knew then, and that is exactly how all of your opinions and the way you view the world is shaped by the way you are brought up by those around you. And I'm not saying it can't be changed, because it can, but that's how you view the world. Your two caregivers are what it's the duckling thing. You see, you do. But kids also know when there's a discrepancy in that, and they're going to base their feelings on that. So I thought, well, if I get from that person's point of view, so tell me how you felt as a kid, is what I ask people to do. How did you feel about this as a kid, and what still affects you now? So people are very easily can go back into their childhoods and say, oh yeah, this was wrong. And by the way, now I can't keep a relationship because I think every man's a loser, or I think every woman is out to get you. They're equal offenders on both genders.
Well, and that's one of the things I appreciated about the people you showcased here, and the common theme is how much the feeling, how long the feeling was still in them. It almost seems that it could never go away. It may reduce, but it never totally goes away.
Well, no, because it can be like a death in some situations. So there's one girl in there, both parents totally abusive. And she said, pretty much she thought the only reason why her parents got divorced, used them as totally as pawns to get revenge on each other. Like they were only there as pawns for revenge. And by the way they treated them, it sort of felt that way. So when you have two parents who are just using and abusing you as pawns for vengeance of another, what are you going to think? You know what I mean? You have to mourn that loss like you got ripped out of a childhood. Completely ripped off. You cannot get that back. And to not acknowledge that as a loss, because it is. It's a complete loss. It's your formative years where other people, you can see, and if see seemingly what other normal is, like, man, I really wish I had a dad that was here. I wish I had a mom that was here, or somebody that could be there for me. And to not have that, yeah, it's gonna leave a mark.
You mentioned that it was a little bit of a challenge to get some of these people to share. What was the process that you went through or had to go through to get some of these people to share, in many cases, not great memories?
Well, the ones that most of the stories were people that just reached out to me. Were sending me like just blind a story of 3 pages. So that was that's when the Huffington Post put the article out there before. It was just talking to people and getting, kind of pulling teeth. These people were dying to share their story. I mean, not afraid to just let it all out. That's what kind of pain and anger they've been going through and holding for years, that they've got this story bottled up. And I mean, I'm talking blind emailed me 3 pages of stuff. And then I would reach out and follow up with them.
That's amazing. Because a lot of times when you're writing a book, the most challenging part is creating content. You had the content pouring into you.
Oh, yeah, it was the easiest, the book, and so originally I was just going to put all these stories in, and I had, hired this girl to proof it. And she's like, this is awful. I kind of want to kill myself. You have to put something in here that's a little bit enlightening. These are awful stories. Can you throw in some tips of, of how to do something better? So we incorporated, what to do, because there are other ways. It's packaging. And at the end of the day, if you really want what's best for your kids, you could either say, this parent is a loser, or this parent has some problems. They're not the parent we want them to be. And it's not you're condoning their actions, but you're having some empathy to it. Because I'm sure not everybody intends from a little baby, you don't plan to grow up and suck. Something has happened along the way that has made you, this way.
Absolutely. I do not disagree. I totally agree with you. We'll get to your insight on some of the tips as we go along. How long did it take you to write the book, from your original conception till final printing?
Over 3 years. And
wow.
That was because it was in action. So it was just, I had some stories, and then I'm writing it. And I wasn't getting the stories. And then finally I get all the stories. And then from then, so I'd say like a couple weeks to just get the stories from the people, put it in a way, one point I was just trying to use their words. And then, some people I copied their words as is, some I kind of rewritten through interviews. And then some time to just work on those tips. And then it got done really quick. But it was, a lot of me talking like, I have this book. And then it was just, I wasn't getting the content. And then finally, I have this book.
Nice. Did you have to do a lot of follow-ups? Because you mentioned some.
So with everybody that contributed to it, so I followed up with everybody to let them know, okay, hey, can I send you a copy? And it's finally out. And, a lot of them, one girl who's in there where the mother lied about who her dad was the entire time. She's like, can I have a copy for him too? And, yeah.
Wow. How did it feel when you held the first copy in your hand?
It was nice. I really thought, if it could be just a game changer, and I've had people say, oh my gosh, I saw myself in this, but it could change the trajectory of somebody's life. And just to know that if somebody can just see a different way of doing things, and you can just change your whole entire life experience, that makes me happy to think that, it's just, and people that are angry and upset, I don't think anybody likes to be that way either. They just don't know how to get out of it. And so sometimes it takes just like, hey, you could do something else, and this life could be better for you.
Since the time that you had your divorce with your kids to now, how do you feel? Has the environment gotten better, worse, or stayed the same when it comes to the effect of divorce on kids? Is there more out there to help kids with situations like this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's always going to be more out there to help. Parental alienation is now really recognized as a real thing, even though it's hard to do. And I think the courts, they've got a long way to come, is what people complain about that. But there is more to help. And since the Gwyneth Paltrow came up with the conscious uncoupling, and even that, interestingly enough, got some fight back. Like, why does she have to make this up? Well, if it's going to be nicer, I don't know why you would, everybody's got an opinion to pick on something. I just think if you're going to package something as nicer, some people are resistant to, well, it's a divorce. It's got to be awful. And, I just think if you're going to go through something, it doesn't have to be awful. You can make your experience different, certainly.
One of the like, getting back to some of these stories, it's so interesting that in one of the common terms that one spouse is referring to the other spouse is this a loser. I see this word loser a lot. So harsh.
It's very, and it's extremely damaging, and it is, as you know, the words that you repeatedly hear as a child are what's going to go in your brain. You're not good enough. You don't stack up. And to a child, you're just like your mother.
Yeah.
Your mother's a loser. They can connect the dots. And it is what you're fed is what you will believe.
It's because people don't realize words have power.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially when
Absolutely.
you're a young child or growing up, they even have more power.
Mm-hmm.
And then when a couple gets married and they have kids, the image of parents is with them, and a lot of times they will replicate.
Absolutely. And that's how these cycles get passed down and how people continue why we have such a problem with abuse and domestic violence in this country is, you see it and then you wonder, well, how do people see it? And then just say, oh, I don't want to do that, but do it again, because you can't help it. When you grow up in an angry household, what becomes in you either repress it because you don't like that anger, but it's in there and it will come out.
Absolutely.
And it's just being able to manage those things. But if you had better emotional regulation, and evidently we do need to teach people this because we have a chronic problem with trauma in our culture. I mean, the ACEs 2 high study of childhood trauma is huge, and that was done on like white middle class people. So, if, those people are having problems, what is everybody else having? If it's, really bad there.
Absolutely. Well, if you're comfortable, I'd like to go through some of these anecdotes
Sure.
with you, and we won't go through each one of them completely. Maybe give two or three, just tease the audience, and they can buy the book for the rest. But
All right.
right here, you have the top 5 things never to say to your children about your ex-spouse, and then I love how you put in brackets and what to say instead. So here's an example. Your mother's always late. She must not want to see you very badly. Or your mother doesn't love you. If she did, she would spend more time with you. And then you say what to say instead is talk to your ex directly about how important it is for them to be on time for the visitation. And don't do it in front of the kids. If possible, consider having him or her meet you at a place where the kids can be entertained if your ex-spouse is late, such as a playground or a restaurant with a kids' play area. If your child asks why the parent is late, you can simply say, I don't know. You can ask her when she gets here instead of calling them, oh, you're always late and all that.
Right. It's how and then your kids learn resilience in situations too. So the more you get flustered with things, that's how they're going to learn how to handle things. And sometimes, you can't let the situation control you. You can control the situation.
True. And folks, when you get this book, Marina does not play. She's giving you straight things that people say, like your father is a loser. He never accomplished anything in life. How can that be turned around into a more, not say a positive, but a less grinding phrase? How would you respond to that, or look for positive qualities instead of saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there had to be something redeeming about the person if you chose to procreate with them. One thing, do they have nice eyes? Or they have artistic talents? You can find those things to say. And, and you can also just say, hey, especially when somebody is abusive, we don't accept this treatment. So you don't accept it, but this is not who they want to be right now. And maybe they're not safe to be around, but you still don't have to go further and bash them. You can set up boundaries and say they have a problem and they need to get help. And right now, and until they get help, we're not going to be safe together, so we can set up boundaries. You can still do that too without just laying into the other person.
Cool. I'll jump to this section here, 10 tips to avoid talking badly about your ex. And I like the first one you put down, complain to the right person. Talk about that. I like that one.
Well, so if your ex doesn't give you money for the rent, what can your 7-year-old child do about that? Nothing, except for feel nervous, worried, guilty, and powerless. So you have a girlfriend, a guy friend. If you really, if you want to get something off your chest, that's okay. A trusted counselor. Hey, oh my gosh, this is stressing me out. He's late again. Get your gripe out with the right person and then come up with a plan. Okay, we know he's going to be late or she's going to be late and she's not, and they're going to do these things. What can we do to either earn extra income or cut or do something else? Let's brainstorm on solutions instead. So yeah, the right person. And if you're really having trouble with, anger, there's tons of free divorce support groups. I know lots of churches have those. There's a lot of resources where you can get support and help with other people in your same situation that are dealing with. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. It's rough and it's hard when people don't come through with things that you expect them to do. But you have two choices: to wallow in it and just let it sink you, or to, okay, let's be solution focused.
Another one I like in this section, it's two more I'm going to highlight on. One of them is write a letter to your ex that you'll never mail. I've never heard of that before.
Well, if you could just want to get it all out, if you're really feeling it, and I also advocate noticing, where are you in this scenario? Because 50% in it, now granted in the case of abuse or something else, I didn't go and hit other people and talk nasty, but how are you in this situation? And, write the letter, whatever you want to say, look at it, feel it, burn it.
Good stuff. Another fascinating one I see in this section is enlist the help of your kids. Now, that's interesting because if you're not happy with your ex, where's the positive end of enlisting your help of your kids, and how can you do that? What's the way to do that?
Well, you can have your children teach them about setting up boundaries early. So if your ex is going on a tirade about you, is, hey, you know what? I really don't want to hear about how bad mom is right now, and I really don't want to discuss dad with you. It's okay to teach your children boundaries then. I really don't want to talk bad about them. They're not here to defend themselves. And it's okay to say that. And if somebody is doing things, I don't like it when you talk to me that way, to help give your children a voice. Please don't talk that way. I don't like it. And who knows, maybe coming from a child, that might do something to the parent, or it might not. Either way, kids will figure out who they're dealing with too.
Very fair. I want to jump to this section, how to talk to kids about sensitive issues such as abuse and neglect. And one of the things you have here is tell the truth, but keep it age appropriate. What does that look like?
Well, so, if your ex had an affair, okay, so a 4-year-old probably not going to know what that is. So I think you could stick it high level. We're going to have 2 houses. And then even later on, you can talk about what happens in a marriage. You can explain it flatly rather than, well, I went and I was totally faithful. And they, even though that might be it, they broke the vows and they just went somewhere else. Still could be the truth. But when you're coming from a point of vengeance, or I need to make that other person look bad because they hurt me, and you are hurt, and it probably did wreck what was going on, but just the further of bleeding that onto your kids is not helpful to them. So I think you can just keep it age appropriate and keep it also rather than the person, but more of the action. And, they obviously this person, didn't have the ability to do this. What could we do if we want to be faithful partners in the future? How can we prepare ourselves to be those things? And you can talk about how you can be a faithful partner, how you can stay away from having an addiction problem, do the different things you can to arm yourself to have better resources to not fall into traps.
Nice. I like another one here. Ensure the child that it's not their fault. And I can see that very easily happening where kids may take it that it's their fault that this marriage didn't work out.
Absolutely. And I think some parents, make the child feel that way too. Well, if we didn't have that third kid,
Yes, I hear that. I've heard that line. I've heard that line before. Yes.
And but also kids are, they're egocentric beings for a long time. So really the world is about them. And it feels like a rejection. So if you have a parent that leaves and then doesn't come back, moves away, starts another family and doesn't talk to you, I mean, that's exactly how that kid is going to feel, abandoned. So, so they're real feelings, and to talk about kids about why they feel that way, but then also to assure them that, you know, that person, even though they're doing these things that affect us and are hurtful and harmful, but it's not your fault that the other person acts that way. It's that person's problem. And when other people's problems start to affect you, that's when you can set up boundaries, because you don't have to be affected by other people's problems either. You can set up a space where, you keep your problems that you're bleeding onto me that you can't control over here. I'll try to control what I can control here.
It seems so interesting. One of the things I'm getting here as a common theme is sometimes parents don't realize how their emotions affect their children.
I don't think they do. I mean, who was ever told that? I mean, just from parenting advice from like way back when, I mean, it was, what did we have, kids a long time ago for workers, eight, not because we need somebody to work in the field. So children were labor. And then, what are they meant to be seen and not heard? And then, well, and now kids these days, they're not getting spanked, which actual research will show you that spanking is not good for children and actually has a negative effect, regardless of what people are married to thinking. So people have had this idea that, the parent rules, what I say goes, and these are my little soldiers who are going to listen to me. And rather than thinking, well, true psychology will tell you what you see is kind of what's coming back at you. Unless, there's other stressors that can influence that. But if you are in a household that is quick to anger, quick to jump at emotion, quick to blame, shame, and criticize, that is going to foster something in the child, for sure.
Absolutely. Another point here that you share with us is don't be afraid to say the wrong thing. That's interesting.
So, and I'm saying in what context
Well,
I said that.
I'll give what you share
Yeah.
here. If your child asks questions or wants to talk about your ex-spouse's behavior, don't shy away from a discussion. As long as you are honest, compassionate, and caring, and you can avoid bashing your ex, your child will benefit from the ability to talk to you about difficult issues.
Yes, so more on that line. So not the wrong thing like, oops, I slipped out that your dad cheated on me with 3 people. Not that kind of wrong thing, but just in, I think you can be open and honest with kids with some age appropriate and you can always, and I guess what I mean maybe by the wrong thing is sometimes, I've yelled, got out of hand myself, and then to come back and, oh my gosh, what I said, that wasn't right. I behaved badly. I'm sorry. There's a different way to do it. And to come back as an adult and apologize to your kids, because we're not perfect. And, most people are truly trying to do the best they can. And I think people do appreciate when you can, and children too, be honest and be like, hey, that didn't go out the way I wanted it to go. And I want us to be better.
I know in the book that you spoke to children who have been through the divorce and who are older now. Do you get the opportunity to talk to children that are in their teenage or young years who are enduring a divorce of their parents? Do you get a chance to do that at all?
Yeah, so I do have some clients that we do work with, talk to the kids about what's important to them. So we work with the parents separately and then the children, but the children from a level of, what would smooth look like to you? What are your biggest frustrations about being divorced? So not to talk the nitty gritty of who's bad, but just like, what's hard for you? Is it because I only have clothes at one place, or because I can't talk to somebody when I want to talk to them? And we kind of get the kid wish list together along with what the parents can do and see if we can do something that can make everybody happy.
You just referred to it, a kid's wish list. Has the kid's wish list changed in any sort of dynamic over the years, or is it basically the same core things you hear from the kids that are going through a parental divorce?
It's the exact same thing. Kids want to be loved by both parents. They don't want to hear you bash out the other parent, and they really do. They're not going to say it, but their self-worth comes from that. And so when you bash the other parent, it does make them feel bad, even though they might feel wrong. They have a lot of confused feelings because sometimes when a parent, especially if there is an addiction and they've seen or abuse, you can see that bad parental behavior. It's hurtful to the kid. They feel shameful, but just to let them know, it's not with them, and that you can talk about it, and that it's okay to feel that way, and just kind of work through it.
And I'm going to bring up an interesting topic here. I hope that it's of interest to yourself and our viewers live or on the replay. How has the education system adapted to this, if at all?
Well, I think there's more counselors in schools now. They are aware, especially when there's a high conflict divorce. You'll see, a couple times there's a policeman at school because we've got a parent coming in trying to do something a little rogue. They're starting to put social emotional learning in schools here. They're kind of debating that. I think that will be very helpful, especially with children who a lot of people, because of different healthcare, what's going on in our country regarding that and mental health, it's very expensive to get help. So many people can't get any kind of mental health help because it's not affordable. It's not accessible to them. And so you're really leaving people kind of, out there without a lifeboat.
And I'm just really concerned because Marina and I had a conversation last night about what is going on in the United States, and also too how there are probably going to be cutbacks in the education system. And usually in the education system, when there are cutbacks, counselors are usually the people who get let go.
Yeah, you're getting rid of the kids' outlets if you're getting rid of, music, art, recess, and mental health. I mean, it's a recipe. Schools were originally designed for people to work in factories, to sit for
Yes.
8 hours in factories. And so, is that what we're, something to think about too, school?
Yeah, jumping around a little bit, what has the writing of this book shown you about yourself that you didn't know before you did this book? Was there anything that a quality, a trait, or something you learned about yourself that you didn't know you had before the book?
Well, to be honest, I guess I probably didn't realize too how much, anger that I still hold in things that, just reading those stories and then getting so mad, at all these things. And then what I still kind of hold up in my life, anger wise, and that, we all need a little bit of help, regardless if we're going total train wreck or just a little, side skirt that people go through, is to talk about things more, and just the ability to have people talk about things. And when it came out, I have a lot of people like side messaging me, oh my gosh, this is happening. Can you help this person? But it's a secret. Nobody wants to talk about, nasty divorce going on in their life. So to talk about things more, the bad things that do happen in people's lives. And I think the more you bring it out in the open and, hey, this isn't normal, there's a better way to do it. And then people might not feel so shameful about it either, from the way of, one of the girls had said to me, when I got this book together, seeing that, she's like, at least it's not just me. I thought I was the only person that had these
Right.
like awful parents. And, no, you're not alone. There's a ton of people. So to make people feel better in the way that they're not alone, but also the people that are the perpetrators, that you can change too. And that it's extremely damaging. So for almost all the parental alienation stories, the person that alienates, now it might take 20 years, but that other parent will come around and the kids will know. So if you really want to destroy, your relationship, it's a bad decision.
I just want to ask, either through the book or through your practice, have you seen parents that have wrong turn the corner and become good?
I have, actually. I have seen people make changes. I have seen people do 180s, might be like a 160, almost there. But people do change. And then I've seen people just stubbornly not change. And it's getting that person to see, something has to be motivating for somebody to change. If I'm mad and I just want to be angry and I have money to do it, I just may do it to the end of time. But sometimes people have health issues that come up. That's come up with a few people, that then all of a sudden their life maybe feels a little more fleeting. Is this what I want to be doing? When you're faced with your own mortality, is this the legacy I want to leave? is, you know, these bad behaviors, and it does spur them to change. And it takes a lot to change too, when you've been that, stuck in something for a long time, and that works for you. People, choose, or don't choose, they end up with addictions, they end up with anger management problems, because that's what's working. They don't have any other solution for their problems besides to self-medicate or to extend outward to others. They are stuck.
Right.
And so they need another avenue to manage what's going on with inside them.
With this subject, when you get responses or content from people who have been abused, do you hear more from men or women, or is it about equal?
It used to be that women talked a little bit more about it, but more and more men are coming out and just showing. And I think, men end up getting the more short end of the stick of this, just from in general, is what we expect of men, to be these tough guy, no emotion, for forever. So for them to even, that hurt my feelings, that's harder, sometimes to come up with than a girl that feels wrong versus maybe the man who can't take it, or then feels even more inferior when you have, and in this country we've got 50%, I think, almost.
Right.
Divorce, and a lot of single mothers. So we have a lot of fatherless families out there. And when you don't have a positive male role model, that's not helpful either.
That's a good point that you make. Can you expound a bit, like when children go through a nasty divorce and it's not the greatest of father figures? What are some of the possible impacts, short-term and long-term? I know some of them are highlighted in your book, and maybe you've heard other, but could you give some input on that? Because it's a very important subject. And myself being Black, we hear a lot about it within the Black or African American or African Canadian community, but it's also prevalent in other communities as well.
Yes, and it's, fathers are very vital as a role in a family. And so when you're missing that element, so a child is missing one extra parent, you're also missing that figure that is, for a young man, somebody that they're going to emulate. And so if they have somebody that they perceive as a loser, that's in jail, that's drug addicted, that's something that seems less than, then they feel that's a reflection on themselves, or that somebody leaves them. Well, I guess I wasn't good enough for this person. And then, or this person just couldn't get it together for me. So it's, a lot of damage goes on, and then not having that. And then you go to school and everybody else has their dad there and yours isn't, that the kid feels that every time it happens. And same thing, and there's, what you can do is, if you have another positive male in your life, a brother, another family friend, a grandparent, to help build that relationship, to help bring a positive male role model around, because you do want to show that. And if a child is just seeing a man that abuses women, that hits women, that talks down to women, that's what he's going to want to do. And so if you can show him a better role model of a man who doesn't do that, because there are many men that don't, show them that role model of the guy who is honest, integritous, hardworking, cares for, does all these things, then you're going to help foster that down the line too. And, sometimes you can use the, what do I not want to be? And I guess
Right.
I saw that a lot of the people that were, did the things like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be the person that comes into a room and just kills the vibe with my presence.
Suck the oxygen out of the room.
Yeah.
Excellent. I also like how you've included in the book getting some perspective from psychologists and from lawyers.
So, yeah, they see all the different sides of it too.
Absolutely. How do you feel the legal profession is addressing the whole aspect of the kids when they're going through a divorce? Because I remember a number of years ago, I had a gentleman on the program who was going through a divorce and was fighting for his kids. And
Yeah.
and he said that it's such an uphill battle because he felt that the courts favor the mother in situations like that. Any
Absolutely.
comments?
Yes, and people use that because I can just, and this is a couple that I know was doing the same thing. Like, Just call the police. He's doing something. File bogus police reports. Get ahead of them on they're doing something dangerous. I mean, it's crazy what they do. And then the court, is locked to what they're locked to. And yes, extremely unfair. And then depending on money wise, what state you're in, which way it goes. But yeah, not set up for the children at all. And then some lawyers are just greedy and they're like, yeah, go ahead and make that motion. We'll get them and they'll take your money at, $250, $400 an hour, whatever it is, to hear you complain about the ex and go after them. I mean, people spend years and sometimes millions of dollars getting divorced, which is just insane.
True.
Think about like, wow, we could, or maybe, regardless of how much money that is to you, but, just big money on a divorce. What could you do for your children or for other people in the world? But now it's for fighting because nobody can handle their emotions. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
It's a display of immaturity with money.
There you go. How did the relationship develop with HuffPost? How did that come about?
So I was writing for Gal Time, this another online publication, and I did something about dating after divorce. And so they picked it up, put it on their site, and then asked if I would blog for them. So then that came around and got heavy into that divorce space, and so mine are all positive things, and really just maybe flippantly in some of them it's they might sound like get over it and get positive, and so I think a lot of people were they want to be mad, they've been wronged, they want to be hurt, and it's okay to feel those feelings, but just if you can do it in a way without hurting others, your hurt doesn't have to hurt other people.
True. Very, very, very true. I think it's always an interesting balancing act when a couple's going through a divorce and separation and another potential partner enters into the mix, and how to handle it, how to deal with that with the kids. Or do you have any suggestions when someone else will be coming in that person's life, how to approach your kids on that?
Yes. So, so I'll do the worst case scenario.
Sure.
You're, the person has been cheating on you and then marries the person they cheated on with. So you're now have to see this, and that's what you think. Okay, I give you the biggest kudos for going over that one, because at the end of the day, you're not stopping that train. They just got married. It's going on. But who is going to be in their presence is your children. And I guess if I'm really thinking about the kids, I think about it this way. What thoughts do I want in that person's head while they have my children in their presence? So if they hate me because I'm spitting venom at them, how are they going to treat my kids? I guarantee you, not nice. So I want, I guess just from a higher level of, okay, do I want this other person? And my children do have a stepmother who's really nice. I could be mad that she does all these things for my kids and she does, or I could be like, wow, they're so lucky. I don't have to worry when they go over there. I don't think about, are they being abused or hurt?
Yeah.
She's doing something really nice with them. I don't also worry about them loving me more than her. Because it just doesn't work that way. That's not how love goes. It's not what people can do. You are the parents. You've already got the number one spot. And what's wrong with more people loving your child? That's what I think.
Good perspective.
They're not going to die from too much love. And, as insurance for later, going into the teenage years, I guess I kind of think, well, what if they can't come to me? And what if they do come to this person and they've got a drug or alcohol or some problem? I want them to help my child, And, but then let's say you have a person who's not right. So maybe your ex makes a poor choice the other way, and this person's, they are drinking all the time. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want my kids driving in a car with somebody who's drunk. Okay, that's fair. So you can do things about that and stand up when it becomes a danger to your child. So then you can step in and say, hey, you know what? I can call the police on this. That's not safe if this person has an alcohol drug or they're abusing my child. So again, you can impose boundaries, but really it's more our ego is hurt, rightfully so, when they, marry somebody else. You don't have to be best friends with her and, have lunch, but you can be kind.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
You can keep it short. That's okay.
When you started writing this, you had a vision. I'm sure you did have vision. Has at least some of that vision been attained with the publication of this book?
Well, my vision was that every divorce lawyer has this in their office just as an option, really, to see, with a lot of things in life, if you just knew, for me, what's the worst case scenario of this? Well, I could change behavior now. I like to know these things ahead of time, to know what I don't know. Please tell me. I don't know everything. And if you see a train coming and I can avoid that, yes, I want to know. I really do. And then it kills me. It keeps me up at night just seeing just little children hurt, because then they turn into big people that are hurt, and big people that are hurt sometimes act out in bad ways with guns,
Yeah, it's true.
or other things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
long range, or they kill their own self, and none of that needs to go on. It really doesn't. So I just, it's the high road's hard, but it's so much nicer. And, there's a lot of things that also go on in your body when you're angry and stressed and you have that nasty divorce. You might die 20 years sooner of cardiac arrest. So you're not even going to get those kids you're trying to keep from your ex. Think big picture.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. Hurting people hurt people.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
So if you're growing up in a hurting environment, do whatever you can to try to change around or get out of it. And that's whether you're a child or you're an adult, do something to turn it around, because you don't really know times the long-term implications it may have on your thought process and your spirit and your behavior.
For sure. Emotional contagion is real.
Absolutely. Well, Marina, you've been rocking and rolling, and I don't want to keep you, but you've done a fantastic job just sharing with us over the last few minutes. Really
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Do you have any final comments you'd like to share with our audience when it comes to divorce and from a kid's eyes view?
Yeah, it's there, if you really, really just think about your children and their well-being, they are so impressionable, and doing the right thing, it's what you model. There are better ways to do things, and it doesn't have to be bad. It really doesn't. And you can take control and manage the things in your life, even if they are bad. A divorce is one of the top number 1, 2, 3 stressors of life, but it doesn't have to take you down, and it doesn't have to take your kids down. There are some things you can do. So arm yourself with that and take care of yourself, take care of your family. And it's, those are the only things you really can change in the world. So make a difference.
Well put. If people want to get in touch with you and find out more, how can they do that?
So they can get me at nastydivorce@kidseyeView.com. And I'm also at anotherwaytherapy.com as well.
Excellent. Well, this has been a great conversation. And as I shared with Marina before we came on, the mic is open for her to come back. She has a wealth of knowledge and information that, if she has some time, I'd love her to share, because there's other areas I'd like her to come on and chat about if she has time in her positive, productive schedule. So I'm just putting it out there. If she's ready, willing, and able, we'll find a way. So it's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I'd like to say this is the home of epic conversations and the place of epic conversations. If you want to touch base with me, the 3 best ways are Twitter at drvibeshow, email address dr.vibe@drvibeshow.com, and always you can go to the website www.drvibeshow.com. If you want to catch any of my epic conversations on the replay, you can go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm very happy people are subscribing to it, so thank you so much. That gives me verification that I'm doing something good that you enjoy. And if you have any suggestions, make it happen. If you want to listen to audio replays, there's different platforms like, I got to get it right, Apple Podcasts, there's Google Play Store, Google Play Music, there's iHeartRadio, iTunes Radio, Stitcher Radio, and another number of different things. And I'm also very Google-licious. So you just put the Dr. Vibe show in your favorite search engine. That's DR.VIBE show. You'll catch me. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. Thank you if you're watching this live or on the replay. And remember, Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. And coming up in a few minutes, our next guest, James Foreman Jr., who's written a book called Locking Up Our Own: Crime and Punishment in Black America. So that is at the top of the hour if you can catch it. If not, catch it on the replay, but also make sure you catch this on the replay. Thanks a lot for watching, and take care. And